From Pepto-Bismol paint guides to dead automotive executives tripping over tail fins, the 1959 Cadillac Series 62 Convertible hides secrets far stranger than its eye-popping chrome and towering rocket ship fins. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Pink Cadillac's 1959 Series 62 Convertible. Fact 1. Pink was never a factory color option. When you think of a 1959 Cadillac, your mind probably conjures up images of gleaming pink paint and chrome as bright as a summer day. But here's something that might surprise you. Cadillac never actually offered bright pink as a factory color option for the 1959 model year. Despite the hundreds of eye-catching pink 1959 Cadillacs you see at classic car shows, cruising down boulevards, or featured in museums today, every single one of them started life in a completely different color. The 1959 Cadillac color palette included more than 40 interior options and numerous exterior choices, ranging from Seminole red to various shades of blue, green, beige, gold, and white. But nowhere on that extensive list would you find the bright, bubblegum pink that has become so iconic. So where did all these pink Cadillacs come from? The answer lies in the custom paint jobs that owners commissioned after purchasing their vehicles. During the late 1950s and throughout the 1960s, having your Cadillac repainted in a custom color was a popular way to make your luxury vehicle stand out even more, and pink quickly became the color of choice for those who wanted to turn heads. The association between pink Cadillacs and rock and roll royalty, particularly Elvis Presley, who famously drove a pink 1955 Cadillac, only fueled the trend further. Body shops across America became experts at mixing custom pink shades, with some owners going to extraordinary lengths to achieve the perfect hue. This means that every pink 1959 Cadillac you see today is essentially a one-of-a-kind custom creation, making each one even more special than its already impressive factory specifications would suggest. Fact 2. Pepto-Bismol was used as a paint swatch. The story of how one Arizona owner matched his 1959 Cadillac Series 62 Convertible to the exact shade of pink he envisioned has become the stuff of automotive legend. Larry Reed, who owned his pink Cadillac for 38 years, didn't bring paint chips or color swatches to his auto body shop when it came time to transform his originally white convertible into a show-stopping pink masterpiece. Instead, he did something far more unconventional. He walked into a corner drugstore, purchased a bottle of Pepto-Bismol, and brought it straight to the painter. He pointed at the distinctive pink liquid inside the bottle and told the confused but amused painter that this was precisely the color he wanted for his Cadillac. The painter took the challenge seriously, carefully studying the bismuth subsalicylate's unique shade of pink and mixing custom paint to match it as closely as possible. The result was spectacular, creating what many enthusiasts now refer to as Pepto Pink, a shade that perfectly captures the optimistic, over-the-top spirit of late 1950s America. This unconventional color-matching method wasn't just a one-time quirk either, as the story spread throughout the classic Cadillac community, inspiring other owners to use similarly creative methods for achieving their perfect custom colors. Some crushed flowers against paint samples, others brought fabric swatches from clothing, and a few even matched colors to beloved childhood toys. The Pepto-Bismol Cadillac became famous in its own right, starring in parades, appearing in television commercials, and gracing the covers of numerous classic car magazines throughout the decades, proving that sometimes the best design inspiration comes from the most unexpected places. Fact 3. The fins were taller than most refrigerators. The 1959 Cadillac's tail fins remain the most extreme example of automotive design excess ever produced for the mass market, reaching a truly staggering height of 42 inches off the ground on the top-tier Eldorado Biarritz model. To put that measurement into perspective, these chrome-tipped fins stood 3.5 feet tall, which means they towered over most kitchen appliances, easily surpassed the height of an average 4-year-old child, and reached nearly to the shoulders of many adults. The fins weren't just tall either, they were sharp, distinctive, and unmistakable from any angle, featuring dual bullet-shaped tail lights that glowed like rocket exhausts when illuminated at night. These towering appendages were the brainchild of General Motors' design team, led by the legendary Harley Earl, who drew inspiration from the twin-tail assemblies of World War II fighter aircraft, particularly the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. The 1959 model represented the absolute pinnacle of the fin wars that had raged between American automakers throughout the 1950s, with each manufacturer trying to outdo the others with increasingly dramatic styling. Cadillac won this battle decisively, as no other production car before or since has featured fins that approached this height. The engineering required to make these massive fins structurally sound while maintaining the car's balance was no small feat, and the fins added considerable weight and complexity to the vehicle's construction. Standing beside a 1959 Cadillac today, the sheer audacity of these fins still takes your breath away, making even modern exotic sports cars look conservative by comparison. Fact 4. An executive reportedly injured himself on the fins. The 1959 Cadillac's massive tail fins weren't just a bold design statement. They represented a genuine safety hazard that supposedly resulted in at least one documented injury, though the details remain shrouded in automotive folklore. According to stories that circulated within the industry at the time, one automobile executive was seriously injured when he tripped while walking through his garage and fell directly into his Cadillac's razor-sharp tail fin, requiring medical attention for his injuries. While no official records confirm the exact identity of this executive or the specifics of the incident, the story was reportedly widespread enough within automotive circles to be taken seriously. The concern wasn't entirely unfounded either, as legal scholars later analyzed two prominent court cases from the late 1950s and early 1960s that dealt with injuries caused by sharp automotive protrusions. In the case of Kahn versus Chrysler from 1963, a 7-year-old child riding a bicycle collided with a parked car's fin and sustained a head injury, though the court ultimately ruled in favor of the manufacturer. These legal cases highlighted a growing awareness that the increasingly extreme styling of American automobiles was creating potential hazards for pedestrians, cyclists, and even the vehicle's own owners. The 1959 Cadillac's fins were particularly problematic because they extended so far beyond the body of the car and featured sharp points at their tips, making them difficult to judge when parking and easy to bump into when walking past. Some parking garages reportedly had to adjust their space markings because the Cadillac's fins extended beyond standard vehicle dimensions, and insurance companies began noting damage claims specifically related to fin-related incidents, from scratched paint to more serious injuries. Fact 5. The Mink test determined interior quality. In the mid-1960s, Cadillac performed one of the most unusual quality control tests in automotive history, a procedure that became unofficially known as the Mink test, though it was never advertised in any company literature or promotional materials. The test involved engineers and quality control specialists rubbing actual mink fur swatches across every new upholstery material that Cadillac was considering for production use, carefully checking to see if the expensive fur would catch on any rough spots, if the fabric caused any discoloration to the pristine white or brown mink, or if the delicate fur showed any signs of unusual wear after repeated contact. But Cadillac didn't stop there, because they understood that real-world conditions required more than just laboratory testing with fur samples. The company actually recruited women who owned expensive mink coats and invited them to participate in 50-mile test drives, during which these well-dressed volunteers were encouraged to get in and out of the vehicle repeatedly, lounge across the seats, sit up straight, and perform all manner of movements that might occur during normal use. Upholstery fabric that didn't perform perfectly during these exhaustive tests was immediately eliminated from consideration, no matter how good it looked or how well it performed in other testing scenarios. This dedication to ensuring compatibility with mink coats reflected Cadillac's understanding of its customer base, which consisted largely of wealthy individuals for whom fur coats were standard attire rather than special occasion wear. The test also explains why nearly every Cadillac brochure from the early to mid-1960s featured at least one photograph of an elegantly dressed woman wearing a mink coat and long leather gloves, often posed gracefully beside or inside the vehicle to demonstrate this luxurious compatibility. Fact 6. Post-war Cadillacs shipped with wooden bumpers. The period immediately following World War II presented unprecedented challenges for American automobile manufacturers, and Cadillac faced one of the most unusual production problems in the company's history when severe material shortages forced them to make a startling compromise. In 1946 and 1947, some Cadillacs actually rolled off the assembly line and were shipped to dealerships with temporary wooden bumpers installed in place of the gleaming chrome fixtures that customers expected on their luxury vehicles. The shortage of chrome and other metals was so severe throughout the immediate post-war period that manufacturers had to get creative with their solutions, and Cadillac's answer was to provide dealers with wooden placeholder bumpers that would at least allow the cars to be delivered while proper metal bumpers were manufactured. Dealers received instructions that they were expected to replace these wooden bumpers with proper chrome versions as soon as metal supplies became available, which sometimes took weeks or even months, depending on the dealership's location and the ongoing supply situation. The first post-war Cadillac rolled off the production line on October 7, 1945, and for several months after that, only Series 62 models were being produced as the company struggled to resume civilian manufacturing after years of wartime production. The transition was difficult for the entire automobile industry as demand for new cars far exceeded supply, with Cadillac reporting as many as 100,000 unfilled orders extending well into 1947. Post-war inflation compounded these problems, pushing the sticker price of a 1946 Cadillac more than $1,000 higher than 1942 prices, despite the vehicles being nearly identical in design and features to their pre-war counterparts. Fact 7. The air suspension was a notorious failure. The optional air suspension system offered on 1959 Cadillacs has gone down in automotive history as one of the most troublesome and unreliable features ever installed on a production vehicle, earning a reputation so bad that Cadillac enthusiasts still refer to it as the option from hell more than 60 years later. The air suspension system used pressurized air bladders instead of traditional coil springs to provide what was marketed as a smoother, more comfortable ride that could automatically adjust to varying loads and road conditions. In theory, the system represented cutting-edge technology that promised to revolutionize automotive comfort, but in practice, it was prone to failure at the most embarrassing and inconvenient moments imaginable. The air bladders would develop leaks, the compressor would fail without warning, the sensors would malfunction, and the entire system would sometimes simply give up, leaving the car sitting low on its chassis like a deflated balloon. Stories circulated among Cadillac owners about air suspensions failing during important events, first dates, business meetings, and even during attempts to show off the car to impress neighbors. The problems became so widespread and the complaints so numerous that Cadillac was forced to develop a special conversion kit that allowed desperate owners to permanently remove the troublesome air suspension components and replace them with conventional steel springs and hydraulic shock absorbers. The company made these conversion kits available through dealerships, and mechanics became well practiced at performing the swap as more and more frustrated owners gave up on the futuristic technology. Despite the system's failure, the experience taught valuable lessons that would eventually contribute to the more reliable air suspension systems used in modern luxury vehicles, though it would take decades of additional development to make the technology truly dependable. 8. It cost more than a year's salary. The 1959 Cadillac Series 62 convertible carried a base price of $5,453, which sounds relatively reasonable by modern luxury car standards until you realize that this price tag actually exceeded the average American household's annual income for that year by $443. The average American family earned approximately $5,010 per year in 1959, making the Series 62 convertible a purchase that would require more than an entire year's worth of income before taxes. And that's assuming the buyer didn't spend a single dollar on food, housing, or any other living expenses during that time. The pricing situation became even more extreme when you looked at the top-tier Eldorado Biarritz convertible, which commanded a staggering $7,401, representing nearly 150% of an average family's yearly earnings. To put these numbers in additional context, the Series 62 was priced at more than twice the cost of an average new car in 1959, which typically sold for around $2,200. This pricing strategy positioned Cadillac squarely as a vehicle for the wealthy elite, and the company made no apologies for this positioning, instead embracing it through marketing campaigns that emphasized exclusivity, craftsmanship, and the prestigious standard of the world tagline that had defined the brand for decades. At 2.2 tons and stretching nearly 20 feet in length, the Series 62 convertible also consumed fuel at a rate that only the wealthy could afford, though it did manage a surprisingly decent 18 miles per gallon considering its massive size and weight, especially impressive when gasoline cost just 25 cents per gallon at the time. Fact 9. Elvis owned a pink Fleetwood, not a Series 62. Elvis Presley's association with pink Cadillacs is so strong that many people automatically assume the king of rock and roll drove a 1959 Series 62. But the reality of Elvis's most famous pink Cadillac tells a different story entirely. The iconic pink Cadillac that sits on display at Graceland and appears in countless photographs and books is actually a 1955 Cadillac Fleetwood 60 Special, a significantly different model from the 1959 Series 62 that would later become synonymous with pink luxury cars. Elvis purchased this 1955 Fleetwood on July 7, 1955, buying it brand new in blue with a black roof to replace an earlier Cadillac that had been destroyed in a roadside fire just weeks before. He immediately had the car repainted by his neighbor Art, who designed a custom pink color specifically for Elvis that became known as Elvis Rose, though the car initially kept its black roof before being repainted white the following year. Elvis gave this pink Cadillac to his mother Gladys as a gift, though she never obtained a driver's license and never actually drove the car herself, with Elvis and his band members using it for transportation to performances throughout 1955 and 1956. The car suffered damage in September 1955 when Scotty Moore drove it into an oncoming vehicle in Texarkana, Texas, causing approximately $1,000 worth of repairs that required extensive bodywork. When Elvis returned from his military service in Germany in 1960, he lent this famous pink Cadillac to his Army buddy, Joe Esposito, and purchased a new 1961 Cadillac Coupe de Ville in white with a pink roof for himself, though it was the 1955 Fleetwood that remained his most iconic automotive possession. Fact 10. Only 11-ton 130 convertibles were built. Production numbers for the 1959 Cadillac Series 62 reveal just how rare these convertibles truly are, with only 11,130 convertible models rolling off the assembly line out of a total Series 62 production run of 142,272 vehicles. This means that convertibles represented less than 8% of total Series 62 production for the year, making them significantly rarer than the various sedan and coupe configurations that dominated Cadillac showrooms. The rarity becomes even more pronounced when you look at the ultra-exclusive Eldorado Biarritz convertible, which saw only 1,320 units produced for the entire 1959 model year, despite being Cadillac's flagship model and the most expensive vehicle in the line-up. These low production numbers reflected both the premium pricing of convertible models, which added hundreds of dollars to the base price, and the practical limitations that made convertibles less appealing to many buyers, including concerns about weather protection, security, and the structural compromises required to remove the fixed roof. Of the relatively small number of convertibles originally produced, far fewer survive today in any condition, as decades of exposure to the elements, the cost of maintaining aging convertible tops, and the expensive restoration requirements have taken their toll on the population. Experts estimate that fewer than 200 truly unrestored 1959 Eldorado Biarritz convertibles still exist worldwide, with perhaps 500 to 700 total examples remaining when you include restored vehicles. This scarcity has driven value skyward, with pristine examples of the Eldorado Biarritz commanding prices between $250,000 and $350,000 at auction, and even well-maintained Series 62 convertibles regularly selling for six figures, despite originally being the more affordable option. Fact 11. The Ghostbusters car started as a 1959 Cadillac. The famous Ecto-1 vehicle from the 1984 movie Ghostbusters began its life as a 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor, which was a professional chassis ambulance and hearse combination vehicle built on Cadillac's commercial platform. The Miller Meteor Company specialized in creating purpose-built vehicles for funeral homes and ambulance services by taking Cadillac's extended wheelbase chassis and adding custom bodywork designed for professional use, resulting in vehicles that were nearly 20 feet long and weighed around 7,000 pounds. The specific vehicle used in Ghostbusters was originally a Futura duplex end loader model that could function as either an ambulance or a hearse depending on the equipment installed. And it featured the same iconic tail fins that made the 1959 Cadillac Eldorado and Series 62 so recognizable. These tail fins, which stood 42 inches tall and featured the distinctive dual bullet tail lights, were shared across Cadillac's entire 1959 lineup, meaning the Ecto-1 displayed the same dramatic styling that defined the era's most extreme automotive designs special. Effects artist Stephen Dane was tasked with transforming this former ambulance into the Ghostbusters' signature vehicle, painting it bright white, adding flashing emergency lights and sirens, mounting an array of equipment on the roof, and applying the now famous Ghostbusters logo to the doors. The original Ecto-1 had a troubled production history, with the car backfiring and billowing black smoke during filming of Ghostbusters 2, and it eventually died on the Brooklyn Bridge during a sequence that caused such a massive traffic jam that the New York Police Department heavily fined the production. Multiple 1959 Miller Meteor vehicles were used throughout the franchise, and replicas have become highly sought after by collectors, with faithful reproductions selling for over $200,000 at auction. Fact 12. Harley Earl retired the same month. It launched. The 1959 Cadillac represented both the pinnacle and the conclusion of Harley Earl's legendary career as the most influential automotive designer in American history, with the timing of his retirement creating one of the most bittersweet moments in the industry. Harley J. Earl reached General Motors' mandatory retirement age of 65 on November 22, 1958, which fell just 5 weeks after the 1959 Cadillacs went on sale to the public in October of that year. Earl had held ultimate authority over all of General Motors' automotive designs for more than 30 years, creating the styling section specifically for him to run after he was brought to Detroit in 1926 to design the LaSalle Cadillac's companion make. The 1959 Cadillac's extreme styling, with its towering fins, extensive chrome, and jet age-inspired details, represented everything Earl had been building toward throughout the 1950s, a period when his fascination with aviation and space exploration drove increasingly dramatic automotive designs across the entire GM lineup. However, there's an interesting twist to Earl's connection with the 1959 models, because while he's often credited as their primary designer, the reality is more complex. Earl was actually on vacation in Europe when his successor, Bill Mitchell, led a crash program to redesign the entire GM lineup for 1959, drastically altering the designs that Earl had previously approved. When Earl returned and saw the finished designs, he reportedly huffed a bit at the changes, but ultimately blessed the project, recognizing that his era was ending. Bill Mitchell moved into Earl's oversized office on December 1, 1958, and immediately began moving away from the glitz and excessive chrome that had defined Earl's final years, toning down the 1960 models and setting the stage for the more restrained designs that would follow. Fact 13. Some had rare fuel-injected engines, while the standard 1959 Cadillac came equipped with a powerful 390 cubic inch V8 engine, producing 325 horsepower. A handful of extremely rare Eldorado Biarritz models were ordered with a special fuel-injected version that has become one of the most sought-after options in classic Cadillac history. This fuel injection system was offered as a $500 upgrade, which represented a substantial premium at a time when the entire Biarritz already cost $7,401. But a few wealthy customers who wanted the absolute cutting edge in automotive technology were willing to pay the extra cost. Fuel injection was still relatively new technology for American production cars in the late 1950s, offering improved throttle response, better fuel efficiency, and more consistent performance compared to the carburetor systems that equipped most vehicles of the era. The fuel-injected Eldorados produced approximately 345 horsepower, a modest increase over the standard triple two-barrel carburetor setup. But the real appeal was the technological sophistication and the bragging rights that came with owning such an advanced system. Experts estimate that fewer than a dozen fuel-injected 1959 Eldorado Biarritz models were actually built, making them extraordinarily rare, and it's unclear how many of these ultra-exclusive vehicles still exist today. The rarity of these fuel-injected models has driven their values to astronomical levels, with collectors considering them among the most valuable Cadillacs ever produced, easily commanding prices well into the six-figure range and potentially reaching seven figures in exceptional circumstances. The scarcity is compounded by the fact that many owners over the years have modified or replaced the original fuel injection systems due to maintenance difficulties, making an untouched original fuel-injected example almost impossible to find. Fact 14. The Autronic eye could be fooled by street signs. The 1959 Cadillac offered an optional technology feature called the Autronic eye, which was one of the earliest attempts at automatic headlight dimming in automotive history, but the system's numerous flaws and quirks made it almost as frustrating as it was futuristic. The Autronic eye used a periscope-like phototube mounted on the dashboard that would detect oncoming headlights and automatically switch the car's high beams to low beams until the approaching vehicle passed, at which point the system would switch back to high beams without any input from the driver. This technology relied on vacuum tube amplifiers, the same type of glowing glass tubes that made electric guitars sound the way they did through amplifiers, and while the concept was brilliant, the execution left much to be desired. The system's most notorious problem was its inability to distinguish between genuine oncoming headlights and other sources of bright light, which meant that reflective highway signs, street lamps, and even bright storefronts could trigger the automatic dimming feature at inappropriate times. Even worse, the system could get confused by certain lighting conditions and enter a feedback loop, causing the headlights to flicker rapidly and uncontrollably between high and low beams, creating a strobe effect that was both annoying for the driver and potentially dangerous for other motorists on the road. Curves in the road also threw the line-of-sight system a curveball, sometimes causing premature dimming or delayed responses that defeated the entire purpose of having automatic control. By 1959, GM had actually replaced the troublesome Autronic eye with an improved system called Guidematic that featured more compact electronics with miniaturized vacuum tubes and better sensitivity adjustment. But even this upgraded version couldn't fully solve the fundamental challenges of using primitive electronic sensors for this application. Fact 15. A 1959 Pink Cadillac starred opposite Clint Eastwood. The 1989 movie Pink Cadillac, starring Clint Eastwood, featured a 1959 Cadillac Series 62 convertible as essentially a co-star alongside the legendary actor, cementing the pink 1959 Caddy's place in popular culture decades after the cars first rolled off the assembly line. The film's plot centered around Tommy Nowak, a bounty hunter played by Eastwood who was chasing after Lou Ann McGuinn, played by Bernadette Peters, a bail jumper who had fled in her husband's prized pink 1959 Cadillac convertible without realizing that a fortune in counterfeit money was hidden inside the car's convertible top mechanism. The movie's screenplay specifically called for a 1959 Cadillac because of the model's instant recognizability and its association with 1950s excess and optimism, making it the perfect vehicle to serve as a rolling MacGuffin that everyone in the film was chasing. Director Buddy Van Horn, who was making his final film, worked with vehicle coordinators to locate and prepare an appropriate 1959 convertible for filming, and the production actually used multiple vehicles during the shoot to accommodate different filming requirements and inevitable mechanical issues with 60-year-old cars. The movie received generally poor reviews from critics, with the New York Times calling it the laziest sort of action comedy. And it opened against Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, which severely limited its box office performance. Despite its critical and commercial failure, the film introduced the 1959 Pink Cadillac to a new generation of viewers who might not have been familiar with the car's history, and it featured early appearances by future stars Jim Carrey and Bryan Adams in small cameo roles that would become trivia fodder for fans years later, and years later, and years later, and years later.